The Sermon on the Mount was that beautiful time in the Gospel of Matthew. Jesus is baptized and then he begins his ministry. And one of the first things that happens in chapter 5 of Matthew is that he's on a mountain and he teaches all the people. And it actually goes on for 3 chapters. And a lot of what people know about the New Testament just comes from this one little portion of Scripture, because there's so much wise, beautiful, blessed are the poor in spirit, and all these kind of teachings from that Sermon on the Mount.
Can I say, Sermon on the Mount is awesome.
It is.
It's totally awesome. And even the way it starts, Jesus opened up his mouth and said, and he just launches into it.
Yeah.
Like, where are you coming from with this stuff?
And everybody's just, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
What is he talking about? It's so amazing, and you can feel this spirit from it, and yet you don't cognitively get everything he's saying.
No,
because
that's exactly. I say it's awesome, but it's sort of just awesome like as a poem or something, because while some of the stuff seems very like practical and loving, other stuff is confusing or feels really cool, but then what is he actually saying by it?
And it has all these pieces to it where he talks about this for a second, and then moment, and then he keeps going. But it's hard to tell what are the threads that hold it all together, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And so keep this all in mind, and let's have a look at some of these words. It's just an excerpt from the Sermon on the Mount, a brief portion that we're focusing on tonight. Matthew 5, verses 38 to 42. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Now I want to hit pause there for a second and just say, that is, he said, you've heard that it was said, as if it was just some sort of tradition or rumor.
Yeah.
That's taught many times in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Not really as a revenge thing, but more as like, if you've done this crime, if you hurt someone in this way, then you need to pay in that same kind of way. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, so now Jesus is kind of updating. He's so bold, let's update this teaching. I say to you, do not resist an evildoer.
You really disrupted the industry there.
Okay. But if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also.
That's it.
That's what we're talking about tonight.
Okay, so already, that first, do not resist an evildoer. There's a higher sentiment to it, but we got a problem of application already.
Right, you do. And if anyone, hits you on the right cheek, even if you're sort of about to pass out, go ahead and say, okay, hit me here.
Let's demonstrate right now.
Right, yeah, we should have a quick visual demonstration.
Okay.
And if anyone wants to sue you and take your coat, and this is translated in various different ways by different, translations, but basically there's an inner garment and an outer garment. This is the inner garment. Give your cloak as well, your outer garment kind of thing. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go also the 2nd mile. This is the famous going the extra mile that people talk about.
That's where that came from. Copyright.
Give to everyone who begs from you. Wow, hey, give me $1 million, would you please? I really need it. And do not refuse anyone who wants to borrow from you. So give, and also borrowing, don't refuse.
Oh, we've got other sorts of problems here. Because those last two, give if you beg, lend to anybody, those aren't even necessarily in the same category as somebody punching you in the face. It just seems
very
like
different. Yeah,
it's not even
like different things.
Really about evil. It's just like what ties all those together. Be a doormat, right? That seems to be the message.
That seems to be lie down, let
just
anybody
do anything.
Right. Yeah.
So what can this?
Don't react.
Can this possibly be literal? And how did the question was correspondentially? What does it mean? Can this be taken literally? How did Swedenborg see this as an issue? This is what we get from our friend Emmanuel. This is from Secrets of Heaven. And
I have to say, it's so cool that our viewers know by now it's got to be, come on, what's going on? And there's got to be more to it. Unpack it.
Look how he approaches this here. Surely anyone can see that these words should not be taken at face value.
Zing. Wow, what happened to biblical literalism? It's just like,
all right,
you're not supposed to do that. Don't you know?
His argument is being like, come on.
And he goes on.
Look at how he approaches this too. Are you likely to turn your left jaw to someone who slaps you on the right jaw? And
what's the likelihood?
Are you
in the field? Are you actually going to be able to practice that?
Are you like?
I know there are people who worked really hard at this. Pacifists and so on. Christian traditions and people have done noble things. But it's interesting that his take is like, really, this is not practical.
Now, and this is coming from a guy who it's not like he said, religion is a nice window dressing, but it shouldn't be all of life. This was a guy obsessed with following the principles of Jesus Christ. Heaven and hell and spirits was everything to him.
Every detail of every interaction with every human being.
Yeah.
It's not something you just do on Sunday for an hour. You know, this is your entire life.
So this is not him just saying, "Oh, don't take this religion stuff too seriously." But look how he appeals to sort of our sense of logic or common sense. He just says, "Are you likely to give your cloak to someone who wants to take away your coat? Are you likely to give your property to everyone who asks? Who is not going to resist evil?"
Evil by nature is like, "Hey, stop it!" You know, of course you're going to. Yeah. Somebody breaks into your house, you're not going to say, "Come on in," or something. You know.
So he's saying here, look, just our natural repulsion to these things is telling us something. No. Nobody can understand this passage without knowing what is symbolized by the right and left jaws.
And that's what the viewers caught on to.
A coat.
This is going to have a meaning.
This is going to have correspondence. A coat and a cloak, a mile, a loan, and so on. Because if you think about it, if you switch out the things, if it said, if somebody wants to take your trash, let them take your recycling as well, you'd be like, yeah, of course. It all has to do with the things that are being offered. Right. So if these things are not actually natural, but they're spiritual, let's see what that is all about.
And when you see them all listed like that, it is an odd list.
Yeah.
It's not a normal, if you sat down and just wrote a list, you'd say, okay, smack in the jaw, right, coat, cloak, mile.
Yeah, the focus is on spiritual life. Ding, ding, that's the key to the whole correspondence thing.
There you go.
Or
we
a
can
life.
Quit now. That's it.
I bet a lot of people wish we would. Or a life of faith, not on physical life, which is a life in the world. The focus is on spiritual life, or a life of faith.
Spiritual life.
Not on a physical life, which is life in the world. Okay, know that going forward. The focus is on spiritual life. In this chapter of Matthew and the next, the Lord opens up heaven's inner reaches, but he does so through images from the world. His point in using these images was to make it understandable only to heavenly people and not to worldly people.
Now that's a strange thing to say. Okay, all right.
And the point in keeping worldly people from understanding was to prevent them from profaning the inner message. We're giving a lot really fast, of the word. If they profaned it, they would hurl themselves into the most dreadful hell of all, which is the hell of those who profane the word. That is why the Lord said in Luke, "To you it has been given to know the mysteries of God's kingdom, but to the rest in parables, so that seeing they would not see and hearing they would not hear." Because that just got real really fast.
Yeah, so there's a protection function. So one question would be, if you didn't mean the jaw or the cheek or whatever, why did you say that?
That's right.
And so Swedenborg's answer is, well, there's a certain level of protection. It's to be able to connect with us in terms we understand, instead of saying some abstractions that we have no idea what he means.
Yeah.
And also there's a protection in it so that heavenly people will see what it means and earthly people won't, because it might be damaging to them.
Yes.
So that's weird. But what is this profanation? Swedenborg would define it. One definition would be to use spiritual knowledge in order to do harm to people. Like, spiritual knowledge is power, and you can use that power over people to harm people, to get them to do stuff that you want, or to drive money into your own pocket or something.
Yes.
And that would be twisting the intent of these words. And so in order to prevent that, there's a little bit of baffling, there's sort of a mist over most of Scripture where you can't quite totally tell what's going on.
Right, and that you have people, it's able to get through to certain people, but not to other people. That already, it's got this code in it. Right,
and so that function of hiding that deeper stuff is so to prevent manipulation and harming people who shouldn't be harmed.
Also, for what it's worth, we would certainly compare ourselves to the people at the time that Jesus was giving this lecture and say, well, we sure have a lot more technology than they had then. Like, we can do these amazing things in the world that people back then could not do at all. Swedenborg asserts that actually human minds have been expanding over time. That back at that time, a couple of thousand years ago, people were only just beginning to consider deeper issues in the way that we can now. That there actually wasn't as much freedom of thought. I don't know how you would test that, but that's the assertion.
Right. Yeah, that is something that he asserts is true.
Overall, in that state, misunderstanding something in the literal sense is not that bad. better than setting people up to abuse that sort of power. Okay.
Right. And part of the idea is that, well, how do you get through that threshold? How do you break through into that inner meaning?
Yeah.
It's like if your heart is in the right place, you're welcome to all the spiritual information because you're not going to use it to abuse other people. So when the human heart has evolved enough that we can use it well.